Welcome to the reality show, day 90 of the war in Israel. I'm joined today by Robert, Nathan, Alejandro. Hey guys, how's it going?
Doing well.
I'm good.
So, we are talking today. The title of today's episode is Should Palestinians Be Allowed to Stay in Gaza? There have been statements by a couple of government ministers in recent days in Israel saying that Israel should encourage migration away from Gaza. There has been also something apparently by Netanyahu kind of indicating that there's a possibility of moving some of the population to the Congo. So I will start with my problem with this, just to make sure that we are uh, practicing what we preach in terms of bringing controversy. My problem is the word voluntary. I think the voluntary part is something the Palestinians gave up the right to with October 7th. I think they gave up that right long before with regular attacks on Israel. Uh, the correct action by Israel should be military action that makes the way of life in Gaza a thing of the past. Of course, the terrorists should be targeted, but if the terrorists are targeted properly and with Israel doing everything to minimize casualties on its side, many more people would die than are actually dying. The rest, uh, yeah, can be given the option of you die or you get the fuck out. Sorry for the language. And yeah, that's my general view. Robert, I'm gonna go to you first to see if maybe we can make this another debate episode.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think that's a solution. I don't think it'll work. I don't think it will be effective, but I don't think the other solution works either. And, as far as leaving everybody in place, I don't disagree with the moral right of Israel to take the kind of action that you're suggesting. I can't imagine it actually happening, and not just because Netanyahu and because they don't have the balls to do it. I can't imagine that kind of action surviving on the world stage. I think the kinds of actions that Israel needs to take do need that moral righteousness, that certainty that says, we're right, you're wrong, and we will impose on you whatever it's going to take for our security. I just don't think that action is either doable or even necessarily secure. I, as far as the story goes, yeah, I think Ben Gvir and what's the other minister's name? I forget. Uh, the,
Smotrich.
the, these two ministers, yeah, I don't have any problem whatsoever with what they've said. I think it's outrageous that here in the United States, our own States Department spokesman is making an issue out of this. Matthew Miller, he's making foolish statements. There was no reason for us to weigh in on that. Certainly, if the ministers and the Knesset want to encourage Gazans to get the hell out of Gaza, what I love about that is it emphasizes the point nobody wants them. Egypt won't take them. Syria won't take them. Jordan won't take them. Lebanon won't take them. This is not a situation that anybody actually wants a solution to other than to make the entire Levant an Islamic state. And that may well be the reason why, Razi, you're absolutely right, but I just don't see it. It's kind of like saying we should nuke Gaza. I also don't see that as a practical solution, even though you will quickly suggest, well, the only issue there is it's not practical. Yes, it's not practical. It's not going to happen. It can't happen, and not just again because radiation spreading. It cannot happen in the world as it is today. So I'm behind the members of the Knesset who are saying encourage. Well, it depends on what you mean by encourage. No, maybe it doesn't depend on what you mean by encourage. Maybe the encouragement should be as strong as it can be made to be per your suggestion. Maybe that's not a very good answer on my part, but it's the best I can do given the situation in Gaza and Israel right now.
Yeah, I don't think we actually disagree that much, so maybe I should change my view just to make it more interesting. But no, actually, yeah, I will reiterate that my only reason. I think certainly morally, of course, I understand the political and geopolitical constraints. Morally, the only reason not to nuke Gaza is the fact that there will be fallout that'll hurt Israelis. That's
Yeah, I don't,
100%
I don't, I don't,
my
I don't think the
insistence.
radioactive fallout is anything as bad as the political fallout. You would,
Yeah.
you would, that would be the annihilation of Israel. That would be the end of Israel for them to take that action. Nobody,
Um,
including the United States, would support them. It would be,
oh, that nobody would support them. Again, I think Israel should take certain actions that nobody would support. Again, it could be that a nuclear bomb is a step too far in the sense that Israel will seriously harm itself diplomatically. But yeah, back to the idea of voluntary migration. Nathan, so this idea was um, people who expressed it were Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich, both of them government ministers in Israel. Sometimes you hear something that you completely agree with, but the person saying it is somebody you despise so much that you wanna not agree with it. That's kind of how I felt here. But yeah, I think this is the one of those very, very rare things that those two gentlemen, if I can stretch the definition of that, are
yeah.
right on.
If I could just say, because I'm monitoring the chat here, maybe we need an episode on nukes in Gaza because some people are outraged that I am bringing this up, even as an example, even to illustrate a point. Again, I'm against nuking anybody at this point in world history. There are people who certainly deserve it far more than well, not far more, but more than the Palestinians in Gaza. If there was a way to take everybody in Hamas, plus the active supporters of Hamas, and folks are going to be quick to say, isn't that the whole of Gaza? And put them in a country and nuke it, I'd be all for that. But maybe we need an episode on nuking Gaza because, again, in the chat, folks are like, nuking Gaza, crazy talk. In a sense, I agree with that. Just wanted to point that out. Something to think about.
I
Maybe an
mean, I think if,
episode.
if we do that, it very well may be titled "The Moral Case for Nuking Gaza," just to
Yeah.
just to
Well,
trigger people into watching. Yeah, not
If
that.
you have any problems finding opponents, you know my number.
that could definitely bring traffic from a title point of view, but maybe YouTube will shut off the channel then.
Good
Um,
point.
yeah. So I think there are two kind of approaches I want to take with this. The second point that I want to make is actually a counter argument to what Robert said, but I'll start with more of the kind of theoretical background. Um, I mean, in a first sense, I think that, yeah, why not? I mean, this could be a really good solution, whether it is voluntary or not. And I agree with with what you said. They forfeited their rights on October 7 and even long before that. However, I just do want to emphasize one thing that the I think the approach, the kind of viewpoint that Ben Gvir and Smotrich are coming from is they view the world as, it's divided by groups. And you as an individual, you don't have control over your life. The group dictates your outcome and what you should or should not do. So they view the world as in, well, Jews cannot live with Palestinians in the same territory, at least not if there's a large disparity in numbers, then okay, maybe. So we can have a small minority of some other ethnic groups, but if it's a large ethnic group living with another large ethnic group, then no peace can ever occur. And we have to find some solution. We either divide ourselves, that's the left, that's the collectivist left. They're thinking, okay, wait, we have to just divide and let them have a country and we'll have our own country. Or you have the collectivist right who say that, well, we need to transfer them outside. We need to find um, these kind of solutions where we just let them leave or force them out. And I think, if you win a war, if you actually make them surrender, then in the long term, there's no issue of, ethnical background or individuals, whether they're Jews or Palestinians, they can live in a country that's that's founded on the principles of individualism and individual rights. So if you actually win a war, I'm not saying in the current situation, but if you win a war, if you impose your own will on the group that surrenders, total surrender, if you enforce your constitution and your laws in the long run, I don't see a reason why they cannot live in the same geographical area under the same territory of the state of Israel. However, we're not living in that kind of in that situation with Israel does not have that moral conviction to impose something like that. So that's not realistic in the short term. However, I do want to raise an issue about some practical actually problems with actually with having the Palestinians stay in the territory. I mean, right now, and this is referring to Robert's talk before. So you have the entire north that is almost completely destroyed. You have people. I mean, I don't know how many Gazans right now are fugitives in their own country. Like, where are they going to go? Where are they going to live? Just building up the Gaza Strip all over again. That's going to take years probably. So there is actually a practical problem. Like, where are they going to go? Where are they going to stay? I mean, are they just going to live in tents right now for years? So, I mean, I don't know. On the one hand, I think the world will not. It will be very difficult to cause an immigration like that, whether it's voluntary or, I mean, voluntary could be a solution because Israel will say, look, they're voluntarily leaving, and there are countries who are accepting they're welcoming them in. So that could maybe work. Forced immigration. I don't know if that's realistic at this stage, but there is a problem of where are they going to live, because I'm not even sure Israel is going to evacuate the north. But we should also talk about the fact that we don't really know what will happen the day after, because this war is still ongoing. So I mean, no one here. We can't say that Israel has won and it can just dictate whatever terms it wants.
Yeah, it's a good point about the north because the north is almost entirely destroyed. I mean, Israel destroyed buildings there, even when nobody was around anymore, and very well done to Israel. Unfortunately, I
Right.
would like to see. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure which media outlet said this, but they said that the destruction in Gaza is like the most destruction that ever, even more than World War II. So I mean, we're talking about massive destruction in Gaza.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't see that scale of destruction in the south of Gaza. We only see it in the north, and I think Israel, the war is obviously ongoing, but I think Israel is really not pushing as hard as they did, and very likely in part because of, or in large part because of the diplomatic pressures on it. I just want to quickly address Jason in the chat. I know I'm breaking my own rules because it's not a super chat. By the way, thank you, Jonathan, for what is a super chat. Jason asks, should Palestinians who surrender to IDF be allowed to stay in Gaza? Depends on the Palestinian. If it's a terrorist, no. I mean, my view on how to deal with terrorists is maybe too controversial for YouTube, but I put it on X. You can at Rousey Ginsburg. You can go find that. It was recent. But yeah, if it's people who are not involved in terrorism, maybe. Again, I don't necessarily think nobody should be left in Gaza. I think many fewer people should be in Gaza the day after as than there were the day before. But yeah, I don't think that's essential either way. Alejandro, your view on this plan in general, or this idea. It's not really a plan yet.
I'm very skeptical of, first of all, as you said, the implementation of that, but also it doesn't address any of the primary or even the secondary issues that caused October the 7th. the primary issue that caused it is essentially an ideology that conflicts with the pro-Western nature of Israel and the deep antagonism against the land of Israel as such. The secondary cause is that they have a very specific set of land where they can organize this kind of event, this kind of acts with arms, with weapons, and even with rockets. And if you let people just move away while keeping their ideology without having proven to them that it's an ideology of defeat that should be defeated, and without withdrawing them the capacity to have funding for their weapons or knowledge about their weapons, they will continue doing it. I mean, who organized and who set the 9/11 attacks? They were organized outside the US. They weren't organized in Mexico. It was an event planned from outside and carried out inside. Nothing will be solved and nothing will be sorted out by this. What it must be shown is that their ideology is wrong. And also they must be curtailed to their access to funding, primarily the one on Iran. And that could be the primary cause that could take away the problem. Nothing else will do.
By the way, I don't know this for sure, but I'm guessing if you ask in Gaza or in Judea and Samaria and the West Bank who caused 9/11, probably not a few people will answer the Jews. Thank you, Jason, for the super chat. I hope I didn't guilt you into it, but we appreciate it anyway. Bonnie, thank you for the super chat. She says super chat because Nathan Hart rights are realistic. Yeah, we've spoken in the past about the idea of people in Gaza remaining and becoming future citizens of Israel in the long run. And I think we maybe disagreed on how long. I think we had different numbers of the word numbers of times we used the word very when we said very, very, very long time until that happens. But yeah, I'm not opposed to that either. Of course, again, it depends who, anybody who's involved in any way. No. Douglas, thank you for the super chat. He says, I have a great human idea to relocate the Palestinians to Arab nations. Would you like to hear it? Yes, we would. And I know the top officials in the Israeli government are undoubtedly regular viewers of the show. So I'm sure they would love to hear it and maybe we can help them out. Robert.
Yeah, and I think Douglas meant to say a great humane idea because he is talking about that. And my answer to the initial question was regarding a solution to encourage, this is the quote from the story, a solution to encourage the emigration of Gaza's residents. And this is what Ben-Gvir said. Well, my response to that is it depends entirely on what solution Ben-Gvir's got in mind. Again, this is a question of voluntariness, but exactly what I wrote in relation to what Douglas is saying. What about a diplomatic solution involving Egypt and Syria and Jordan and Lebanon and other neighboring countries who have thus far refused most immigration from Gaza and the West Bank? Douglas is pointing out in the chat, and thank you for that super chat, that, well, if they do that, they are in violation of the UN because these Palestinians, these Gazans will, they can demand refugee status. Absolutely. And that is the kind of thing I would like to see. Force these organizations, if we cannot drive them out of New York, if not completely drive them out of existence, force them to do what they say that they are there to do. The fact that other Arab countries will not take these people, it's similar to what Hamas does and the pro-Hamas Palestinians do. They will stay in Gaza and die and let their children die so that they can place that blame on Israel, so they can place that blame on the West. It's the same thing that Egypt and Jordan and Syria and the entire Levant outside of Israel are doing. No, keep those people in Gaza, keep them in the West Bank, force them to stay in Israel so that when of course, they commit their actions and die, we can blame it on Israel. It's the exact same thing. So again, I'm all for this. I think it's a great solution that Gazans are offered the opportunity. Now, you decide what encouraged means. Rousey, I think you'd be happy to encourage them at the point of a rifle, and if that's what it takes. But certainly, if they're willing, go to Egypt, go to Jordan, go to Syria, go to Lebanon, and say, what the hell? Take these people. They want to be with you. They want to be in an Islamic state. They want to be with their Arab brothers. Just by putting that solution out there, the hypocrisy becomes leverage in favor of Israel. And we need that. We need world opinion to be clarified in every way possible. I know there's a few people out there who will never embrace Israel as Western, as freedom, as liberty, as the only civilized country in the area. But the more people that we can change their opinions, just by making it that obvious, just by showing them, look, these people want to be with their Arab brothers. They are the ones who won't take them. They have more freedom, more liberty, more opportunity, more rights under Israel than anywhere else. And real quick, let me make a point because I think this will tie together what we've been saying here. What we have a right to do is not the same as what it is right to do. The political concept versus the ethical concept, and that applies here. When Israel wins this war, and Israel will win this war, when they win this war, they will have the right to dictate terms. What it is right for them to dictate is not exactly the same as what they will have a right to dictate. Consider the end of World War II, what was done in regard to Germany, West Germany versus East Germany, or Japan. So I would say, again, I don't think that it would be right, not in the sense of having a right, but that it would be right, that it would be effective, that it would be the right thing to do to force everybody who is Palestinian, everybody who is not Jewish, out of Gaza. But yes, they would absolutely have the right to do that. It would just be the wrong thing to do.
So, Douglas, thank you for the additional super chat with the humane plan to well. So Douglas has been active in recent days. We've had our agreements, we've had our disagreements. This falls into the latter category where I'm concerned. Although we'll hear from everybody on the panel. Douglas says the world should have a telethon to raise money to relocate the Palestinians to Arab nations. It would raise billions of dollars. Trust me. I'm not disputing that it might raise millions of billions of dollars. I would not donate. Again, I don't think they should be rewarded with money for what they've done. So that's my issue there. Yeah, have them walk, swim. They can get there on their own and build a home from whatever materials they can gather from the rubble. Yeah, Nathan.
Let me pose a question to all of you. Why do you think the West embraced and welcomed refugees from Syria and other places in the Middle East, but they did not and do not embrace or welcome Palestinian refugees?
Well, embracing refugees from Syria doesn't hurt the cause of ultimately getting rid of the state of Israel. That would be my answer.
I would have to disagree. I would have to agree.
And
Alejandro.
they haven't been that embraced. It's difficult for them to become part of the societies because they have sometimes refugee status, which doesn't allow them to move freely within the country. Sometimes something that I really don't like. I'm more for the idea of giving them working visas and leaving them like that. But aside of that, probably it's more in line with what Rassi says.
I mean, I'm with you on giving working visas to real refugees. It really depends on the situation. If you were a part of a war effort where you were clearly on the wrong side of the war and you were the aggressor against innocents, you should not be granted any such privileges. just generally on the chat, I do sometimes read non-super chats just because many of them are good, but we can't read the whole chat during the show, so I'm sure I missed some good ones. One good one that I didn't miss is South Africa should take them. That's a very good idea. We will talk some more about South Africa and South Africa preaching to Israel. This is a very unique, well, actually not unique. It's a regular thing, but it's interesting in its own right. And yeah, I think maybe we'll talk about that either tomorrow or in coming days on the show.
Yeah, I have to say though, doesn't this kind of expose the motivation of these people? I mean, it exposes their altruism and how altruism doesn't really care about people. I mean, to them, Palestinians are just these pawns, and they should be sacrificial animals in the goal to destroy Israel. Um, but if it's just Syrians fighting within themselves, so you don't have successful and powerful settlers, colonizers involved. So yeah, so they'll just welcome them into their nations, and they won't have this. I'm not sure what to call it. This just this rage that to and this I can't call it moral, but they do have this moral conviction of we have to fight Israel and these Palestinians. It's their land and they can't leave the land, and suddenly they're uh, they're like nationalists, for pro-Palestinians.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff, for the super chat. Yeah, the sacrificial animals part, that's also true of how Hamas has always seen Palestinians. I've said on this show, the only thing Hamas loves more than dead Jews is dead women and children in Gaza because, the Western media and Western pro-terrorist propagandists lap that stuff up and use it in their propaganda. Robert.
Yeah, that's I think I said all I have to say there. I'm embarrassed to be in the US when our spokesman is out there making foolish statements about, and these are peripheral matters. What our State Department should be doing is focusing on what the US can do to ensure Israel's victory over the aggressors. With the United States, we should not be condemning Smotrich or Ben-Gvir, and we shouldn't be condoning it either. By elevating these statements, by elevating this to a matter requiring a U.S. response, it's Miller, it's our spokes guy. He's the one being inflammatory and irresponsible. That's what I would say to that.
Yeah, I don't think you should be embarrassed to be in the U.S. It is still the best country in the world, and I would say, maybe there's an opportunity to improve the situation. You have an election this year. There is also an opportunity to make it worse. We're going to talk about that. I believe on Monday on the reality show, we're going to talk about the Republican primaries, and we have at least two different people who would vote for two different candidates. So it will be an interesting episode. So make sure you tune in for that.
Well, that reminder is it may be why I'm somewhat abashed being in the United States, which is the greatest country on earth by well, not by any measure, by most measures, by all the important measures. But I still can't believe we're going to be deciding between Trump and Biden. How can it be the greatest country on earth and have that actually happen? So,
Well, the greatest panel show on earth. The two candidates I know, two of the panelists will side with. Neither one of them is Biden or Trump, so that will be interesting and maybe an opportunity to help change things. Yeah, share that and share this as well, and comment, and thank you, Liberty, for the super chat. Liberty says, I don't think the Palestinians would ever agree to leave. They'd lose their special status as victims of the Jews. Of course, this is why I wouldn't leave it up to them. That's one of the reasons. Alejandro.
Maybe one of the implicit assumptions of this, or why many people have reacted so afraid of these comments is that there is an implicit assumption that land belongs to certain collective groups, and I think that's wrong thinking. And you can see that uh, assumed in many different groups. Like, for instance, when they talk about Native Americans in America, they say, "Oh, the land was theirs." Not, and they don't refer, "Oh, they had a couple of teepees, and then they were taken over by certain kind of settlers." No, what they are saying is they were here in this square of land, call it America, and then they came here and they took the land from them, and it's theirs because they were there first. I don't think that's a proper way of conceiving the property of a land, or setting the place of a land. Certainly, you have the right to the place where you produce, where you have the place that you have purchased, but not because the group that was before you has the same DNA as the one that you have. That doesn't make you um, relevant in the choosing, or in having any claim to a land. I think that that's a wrong way of conceiving things, and that's why the representative of the U.S. Is reacting so badly. But I think that's a really wrong way of conceiving things.
Yeah, and we've mentioned, what we say here, and everybody on the channel is obviously supporting Israel in this war. Is what we say is often going to be controversial very often going to be controversial among supporters of Israel. Certainly, I mentioned, Ben Gvir and Smotrich, and the difficulty of agreeing with them even when they say something that's right. Their case for Israel isn't that Israel is the side of life, whereas the Palestinians are the side of death. Their case is that their imaginary friend gave them the land or something, or that we were there 2,000 years ago, whereas I guarantee you neither one of them was there 2,000 years ago. Nathan, uh, any thoughts? Any thoughts on that, or anything else we
Well,
discussed?
I'm thinking, isn't it interesting that the concept settlement has become a derogatory word? Like it's the manifestation of evil. If you want to settle in a land, I mean, I completely agree. This has been brewing for a very long time in the academia world, where, and by the way, notice that it's only, I mean, it's only the perceived oppressed, or I don't know, the meek group that has any kind of rights to land, and they have these collective rights to land. I mean, I'm not sure what they would say about Europe, because it's the native land of the white people. But I mean, this whole kind of notion, this whole worldview is just so primitive. It's so it goes against everything, in the of all ideas of the Enlightenment. Land is not owned collectively, it's owned individually. Individuals own land because they work on the land. And it doesn't matter if their forefathers lived there a million years ago, that doesn't give them any right to that land. Land can be yours only if you work on it and you produce on it, and you use it. If you don't, it's not your land, and it doesn't matter, where you choose to live. You can go live in wherever. If the land is uninhabited, or if you purchase that land fair and square, then you have a right to live there. I do want to maybe shift the conversation maybe to another place. I don't know if you mind, but this is not really mentioned a lot, that the Palestinian case is really it's like a socialist experiment. I don't know if anyone has ever kind of raised this, or researched this issue, but I mean, they're living off, donations and UN aid. And if you think about it, it's like this I don't know, this creature, this just has been growing in the backyard of Israel, and it's like this. It's not even like a welfare state bastard child. It's more. It's just an actual socialist program where Palestinians, they just live off the productive efforts of other people in the world, and obviously it fails every time, but that's not because that's not their goal. Their standard is failure. Their standard is continual aid, and that's how they survive. And I agree that maybe a lot of Palestinians would not want to leave. They would not want to immigrate because maybe then they'll lose their, their welfare checks every month.
Yeah, and it's an interesting kind of socialism because, it's not internally they don't have to have productive people that they can live off of because the rest of the world has enough of them that they can take money from by force. Robert, any thoughts on that? Or are you gonna attempt at any point to claim refugee status from Syria and see if you can if you have the right of return as we are supposed to believe.
Yeah, I want the right to return to Syria with my ancestors. No, I'll call out to Syria, being that I am an American of Syrian descent. For Christ's sake, open your borders. We have a lot of people calling for open borders. If anybody should have open borders, I mean, look at Syria. Well, granted, it's a desert. They can borrow technology from Israel, who could show them what to do with a desert. And take your Gazan, your Palestinian, your Arabic brothers in. Well, of course, that's not really the solution. We know that folks are now talking about having these Gazans after the war go to the Congo, or is it now just called Congo? Is that different from the Congo? It's amazing to me that Africa is becoming an Arabic country. The northern half already is. And now we want to send more folks there who are in a militant state of mind? No, what needs to happen in Gaza, what needs to happen in the West Bank, what needs to happen arguably in the Golan Heights, what needs to happen is what happened after World War II. And it's not a matter of driving everybody out. It's a matter of saying, you don't get to do this anymore. You don't get to consider your religion to be the source of your government, just like we told the Japanese, your emperor is not your god anymore. Just like we told the people in Germany that Hitler is no longer your leader. No, you are going to live Western by our rules, or you'll spend the rest of your life in jail, and we'll just lock you up. And that is exactly what we had to do after World War II. We need to, I keep saying but Israel needs to win this war and then declare this is a nation of individual rights. And if you do anything against that, well, we'll do what is done after a war when people don't agree to the terms of the war. We've said before, a two-state solution, one-state solution. There is no solution. There is no way to take the spigot of Islamism, of Arabic hatred, and turn it off. The only thing you can do is break the will of the vanquished. I don't think sending them to Congo is going to solve that problem. No, I think what needs to be done is Israel needs to be the kind of state it needs to be. It's already 90% of the way there. Christopher Hitchens point out religion ruins everything. Well, he's right about this. Although the Jewish people do need a homeland for historical reasons, the less that's Judaism as a religion, and the more that is an advocacy of rational Western principles, the more we can then say Islamism has no place here. Just like Shintoism was not going to have a place in post-World War II Japan, etc. I don't think these migrations might help. Again, it's a great strategy. It's a great political strategy. Look, your brothers don't even want you. That's great on the world stage. It's not really the solution. And it's why I think that Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, there was no reason to denounce what they said. They phrased it as voluntary. Encouraging, government encouraging, government nudge. That's something to be concerned about. But as Rousey points out, after the war, you absolutely have a right to do that. I'm good with it. I'm good with what they said. I have mixed feelings about some of the things these two ministers have said, but I'm fine with this. Absolutely. It's not the solution. It's not that big a deal once you realize what the real solution is, which again is a post-war policy similar to what the U.S. had after World War II.
So Yeah, Robert, you and I didn't debate enough. So one point I'll disagree with you on there, which is Israel or the Jewish people needing a homeland for historical reasons. I don't think I disagree with that part. I think Jewish people need a homeland at the moment as a, safe space, as we've called it here. Safe, as in safe from the many people around the world who want to kill Jews. I would love to see the day when there is no need for a Jewish state, and we will continue to advocate for reason and hopefully bring about that day as soon as
Well,
possible.
let me just say, I agree with you in terms of cultural Judaism. I don't agree in terms of religious Judaism. Maybe Michael Leibowitz and I will come on together and argue that one with you guys. Because again, I think the religion is half of what's ruining this. And to the extent it's a significant factor on the Israeli side, it disarms them against the Islamists. You can't say, well, Judaism is a westernized religion. Well, you can say that, but it's the westernized part that is valid, not the religious part. I want all of my Jewish brothers to be safe, whether that's in Israel. The real solution is they should all come to the US, and then the US should defeat the Islamic world. But unfortunately, we have to deal the hand that we've been dealt.
Well, Israel also did not prove to be a very good safe space for Jews.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah. Uh, and this is why some of us, aren't there anymore, or at least a big part of the reason. Thank you, John Was, for the super chat. I'm not sure I thanked you in the previous show. You also sent a super chat, so thanks for that as well. Thank you, Phil, for the super chat. I'll get to your question in a moment. And thank you, Yayo, for the super chat. So before I get to Phil's question, I want to get your thoughts, Alejandro, and yours, Nathan, on the Congo. Why the Congo? Actually, Alejandro, I don't know if anybody's going to tie this into the UK government's plan to send migrants to Rwanda, but I'm sure somebody will find the connection. But yeah, what are your thoughts on specifically the idea of sending them to the Congo?
It's the same as sending it to anywhere else. I'm not sure why the Congo. Maybe it's cheap for them to send them over there in the same way that it's cheap to send refugees that are staying in the UK to Rwanda. They're not that far away. I'm not sure if there is a connection over there, sadly.
Nata.
Well, I'm just thinking, too bad Israel didn't choose Uganda. The Jews didn't choose Uganda. I don't know. Maybe it's also a geographically nicer area, but I don't know. I don't have an opinion about Congo. They can go wherever they want, really. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about that in particular.
Yeah. Go wherever they want as long as it's far away. Phil's question is,
Yeah, I will say, oh, sorry to interject, but I
no,
will say that I don't think that this immigration issue and imposing Western values as the kind of ultimate solution. I don't think that they're conflicting solutions. I think that strategically Israel could kind of work bit by bit. They could wipe out Hamas from the Gaza Strip. I mean, that will help Israel in the long term. If it doesn't have to deal with Gaza terrorists on its border, it's much better that even if they can still, conspire to wage attacks on Israel from Congo or wherever. It's much better to have your enemy far away than close on your border. And I mean, yeah, the ultimate solution will require a philosophical revolution within Israel. So if we can get there by, gradually improving Israel's strategic, foreign policy wise, then I think that's the best you could go in today's circumstances. So yeah, back to you now.
I mean, I'd be a bad capitalist if I didn't use that opportunity to mention that right after this show in 15 minutes on another channel, Daniel will post a link in the chat. There's an interview that I did yesterday that's going to be posted in Hebrew. I know we've gained some Hebrew speaking viewers. You should see me speak in Hebrew, and that's about that'll be about the Oslo Accords and everything that's happened since. And for those of you who don't speak Hebrew, we did an episode on the Oslo Accords on this channel. Was it last week or the week before as well? So I think that's a very, very important part of recent history, not 2,000 years ago. This is something that the effects of which are October 7th is very much a result of the Oslo Accords. So Phil, we get
Yes.
to your question now. Has an atheist Gazan or other Sharia victim target actually ever sought asylum in Israel, or could they? I don't know the answer to that. I know there have been Palestinians who sought asylum in Israel and got it. Specifically, people who are gay were given asylum in Israel. Palestinians. Nathan, do you have a better answer for that question?
No, for sure. For sure, there are Palestinians who have refugee status or asylum in Israel. Also, especially Palestinians who have worked with Shin Bet. And once they were uncovered, so they escaped into Israel if they managed to. Um, so yes, I'm not sure if you can just ask for asylum and then just relocate to Israel. But I do know for sure that if you have given some information, intelligence, if you work with a Shin Bet or something like that, then Israel will take you in.
Yeah, actually, that brings me back to, I think, last Thursday, Robert and I, another disagreement we had was something about collaborators, because I said something like they're not innocent, or they got that information some way in some way because they're probably working with some bad people. Yeah, but it is first of all, I don't know if that's the case in 100% of the cases, but yeah, that's a legitimate deal to make when somebody is working with the bad guys and decides that he is gonna uh, give information that results in getting bigger bad guys.
Well,
Alejandro.
it also depends on his motivation. I mean, he could be just kind of distraught with Hamas or whoever, and he's just thinking, you know what? I don't want to. These guys are not the good guys anymore. Or maybe he just somehow got to work with them. I don't know.
Yeah, and
There,
another thing we've mentioned on the show is that children are always innocent. That's children, not women and children. This popular belief that somehow women belong in the same category as children. They are adults who make their own decisions, even if legally, maybe not so much in Gaza. But children are always innocent. But it's not like there's on your 18th birthday, you are now morally at least fully responsible, whereas previously you were absolutely not responsible at all. It does you kind of ease into it as you gain knowledge of the world, and yeah, it could be that you certainly, if you were brought up in Gaza, you were brought up in a very bad situation where there is only one viewpoint, certainly when it comes to Israel, and yeah, you could figure things out at some point in life early
right.
on. Alejandro.
Well, maybe I should address the issues of should you be welcomed. My answer is yes, there are some people who should be welcomed, but not because they are victims per se, but because they have been working to undermine the ruling party, or in this case, Hamas. If they have been able to prove that they have undermined and have done meaningful actions against it, and that they're essentially on the side of Israel, they should do. However, they must prove it. It's going to be hard to do so. But saying, "Oh, I've been a victim of these people," certainly, I hope that you're not a victim anymore, and I hope that you can sort that out. But that doesn't give you the right, especially in the context of war, to say, "Okay, here I come. Please receive me." You must breach another set of factors.
Yeah, and a lot of this, was very much true up until October 6th, and the situation now is what Gaza is experiencing is the result of what the Palestinian people have inflicted on Israel, and for many on many things, it is too late, and that's all there is to it. Any final thoughts, Robert?
No, no. Sorry, I'm grinning a little bit about the chat, which is somewhat inflamed, and that's good to see. I'm glad to see strong opinions in the chat. People are talking about this question of are people welcomed into Islam? Douglas says Talib is not welcomed into Israel, right? Well, that is my own Congress critter here living next door to Dearbornistan in Michigan. So I especially appreciate that comment. Although I would be very, very happy for her to be welcomed into the Middle East and leave us the hell alone. But no, no, I will again say that I think the controversial statements that led to this conversation are a tempest in a teapot, but they do point us back to the solution, which is an absolute victory over Gaza, over Hamas, which means over Gaza. Hamas is the ruling, the leadership in Gaza. That needs to be understood, even if there are innocent people in Gaza. And I don't think it's exclusively limited to children. But even if there are innocent people in Gaza, this war must be won. What does it look like to win a war? It ain't pretty. It's got to happen. In the end, it'll be a beautiful thing to finally put an end to this organization that has been running that strip into the ground. Victory needs to happen. It needs to happen as soon as possible. For Christ's sake, I shouldn't say for Christ's sake because that's a little too new. For Yahweh's sake, it's January of 2024. This war started October 7th, 2023. There is no reason for it to have gone on as long as it has. This war needs to be won. It needs to be won decisively. What happens to the Gazan people afterward is almost academic if they are treated in the manner they need to be treated. Christ's sake, let's win this thing.
And one thing I agree with almost everything you said there. That's a problem here on this show. But one thing I definitely agree with is keep the chat inflamed. If you're watching the recording of this, definitely comment. And if you think this content is valuable, obviously like it and share it. But commenting, I think as far as the algorithm goes, is probably the most helpful thing you can do. Nathan, any parting thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, I agree that this war first needs to be won. I mean, it's a little bit premature to talk about the day after. It needs to be won. Hamas needs to be eradicated, destroyed, and subdued. And then we can discuss, what's going to happen the day after. I think Israel has the right to force immigration. Voluntary immigration for me is like, why is this even an issue, right? Because if it's voluntary, then this should not even be a discussion. But it should have the right. It does have the right to force immigration, even though it's not the ultimate solution, like we discussed. Um, um, there was something else that I wanted to say, but now I forgot what it was.
Well, if you remember it after Alejandro's parting words,
Sure.
then Alejandro.
Well, I don't have any parting words, Resi. You put me on the spot.
Well, then I will give Nathan another minute or so and ask Alejandro, is there anywhere else where people can follow you on social media or
No,
if you don't want to tell us, that's also okay.
I have no X or anything. So,
Robert, where can people hear more from you?
Yeah, well, of course, folks know they can find me at my homepage, robertnacer.com, is links to everything that I do. My parting words, I'll give one more parting word, which is to remind folks you're watching the Ayn Rand Center UK. This channel is well, we are your best voice for information, for commentary, for discussion about the war. But also read Ayn Rand. She has the solutions to this. Look at her article, her essay, it's online, called The Roots of War. And with that said, Israel's going to win. They've got to win. It's got to happen as soon as possible. That's my only thing I'm contentious about is it ain't happening fast enough, but it is going to happen.
Nathan, so even if you didn't remember what you were going to say, you are on Twitter twice, right? You're on Twitter in Hebrew and in
Yeah,
English.
well, we're speaking in English, so we can just refer the audience to my English handle, which is Enlightened Examiner. I also have a Substack, the Enlightened Examiner. So I haven't posted anything lately, but I will eventually continue to write over there. And yeah, I remembered what I wanted to say, but it wasn't that important, so we can just leave it aside.
Then we can keep it for next week. There's a reason to come back. Yeah, the article I was talking about in the Daily Objective earlier today, I saw it. Nathan shared it on Twitter. It was an article from on his Hebrew Twitter. It was an article from Ynet. Daniel can put it in the chat for Hebrew speakers, saying, yeah, like words of praise for the terrorist who was killed in Lebanon. And
Yeah,
Nathan,
don't
I
get me
think you
started about Hebrew media. Like Israeli media is just so it's just unbelievable,
yeah,
really.
I think you're the best translation of your tweet, if I remember it off the top of my head, was "What is this bullshit?" I think
Yeah,
that's the correct sentiment. I am at Razi Ginsburg on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, if you are a Hebrew speaker, my interview in Hebrew is premiering in 3 minutes. There's a link in the chat. You can go, even if you don't speak Hebrew, you can go give it a like and help spread the word. We will be back here tomorrow with the Daily Objective and the reality show. Thanks guys for joining me on the panel. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.
thank you.